So I retweeted this article yesterday, making fun of it, as many did, and there were a couple people that were like a level of rage
I
that would
heard
associate with baby kicking.
I heard name calling was
I was
involved.
called a name that is not applicable, but hilarious to be called.
Oh, is it applicable to me?
Sure is,
But not to you though.
not to me.
Okay.
And when you use it against me, I'm like, wow, that's your go-to, isn't it? That's when it's just somebody's go-to for bad feelings.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, which says something about them as a person.
Yeah, they're probably not enjoying life.
So Polygon.com put up a opinion piece that I will summarize.
That's funny. I thought it was Polygon.
Yeah, sure. I will summarize thusly. EA's cock tastes so good in my mouth.
Now.
Sorry. The shoe polish off EA's boot tastes real good in my mouth.
Well, it's a little bit more family friendly.
A little bit. This is so outrageous. It looks like it was paid for. This is the kind of shit you see show up in magazines where the fucking tobacco companies pay a doctor to say that smoking's good for you. Like, it is so ridiculous. To be more specific, it basically describes, listen, if you ban loot boxes with the proposed American legislation, then kids won't be able to waste all their parents' monies on sports games, and that's going to kill sports games. Because where else do sports games get the money to pay for these really expensive licenses?
But Pat, before you say that, you might not be considering the following.
What's that?
These expensive pay-to-win modes, and with their loot boxes,
Yes.
if they don't directly pay for the games we enjoy, they at least justify the workforce and development costs that make them worth playing.
But they don't.
But that's what this article says,
But that's never been true.
and that's what I'm quoting right here.
In fact, it's been found and reported on by a number of sources, but I found about it from one of Jim's videos. Hey, you know EA and Activision and these companies, the ones that put out the sports games, they don't actually pay any taxes at all. And they fire their staff to hit profit numbers. And I was also contacted by a lot of people who are Madden and FIFA fans, describing that there are features that are still missing from those games from the fucking PS2 games that were never re-implemented alongside the new engine that was made for the 360.
But
And the fact that sports games are the all-time best-selling games ever. Ever!
But hold on. Now. What about the fact that Take-Two paid $1.1 billion to the NBA for a 7-year guarantee on their exclusive license? How are they supposed to make that money back on the deal they made?
Those games sell 1 million copies in a day.
$1.1 billion dollars is a lot of money, though. And it's a 7-year. They have 7 years to make it. Now, listen. I get it, right? You're just thinking, what's the wrong with making a sports game that doesn't have that stuff? Well, it's expensive.
It is.
You got to make players' faces look super detailed, then that's really expensive.
Well, no
you
one
got
asked
to pay
for that.
rights for, shoes and licensing and
No one asked
seasons,
for that.
story modes, right? You got to
The story mode in NBA games are really high production.
It is something that sports fans who have been playing over the years have come. It's like quality of life. They've come accustomed to the quality of life of a very expensive looking game with a lot of money in it that has buy to win or pay to win features.
They pay 1.1 billion for a 7-year monopoly on the most popular genre in the world.
Now,
The idea that you can't make money off of that means that you don't deserve to be in business. It's very similar to the argument of remember Star Wars Battlefront? They're like, well, we need to put the loot boxes into, because the Star Wars license. It's like, oh, you're telling me that you're unable to make a Star Wars game that will sell enough money with the exclusive Star Wars license. I guess you guys are incompetent fucks, huh?
Are you suggesting we go back to the days of teams like Chicago just being represented by red and black?
No, I'm not actually.
And it just says Chicago on it with no actual logo?
I vividly remember that was NHLPA 93.
Madden 64.
It was called PA 93 because it was the Players Association license they got instead of the real license.
Exactly.
So you had all the players, but none of the teams.
Exactly.
NHLPA 93, 94, 95, 96 are the best hockey games ever made.
There was a time.
Still.
There was a time when Madden didn't have that NFL license, but Quarterback Club did, and those games weren't as good.
NBA Street
and Madden just had to fucking put the colors next to the city names.
NBA Street Volume 2 is the best basketball game ever made and has shit nothing to do with the NBA.
Okay, but Pat, you're not a sports fan. You don't care about these rosters, right? Someone who cares about these rosters wants to make sure that these games can continue to afford paying exorbitant prices to keep these licenses exclusive so that my simulated sports season can go off the way I want it to.
Fine.
I need a source of income.
Hey, listen.
And if loot boxes aren't going to pay for it, then what will?
No, listen, here's the thing. So let's be really clear. There is one thing that EA and all those guys are not at fault at, which is the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, they were the ones who said, we're sick of licensing out to all these different developers. Somebody bid, right? Similar to the way wrestling games are done, right? So EA had the biggest pockets, so they got the fucking thing. Everything except for baseball, which I think Sony got, right?
I'll get into that in a second.
Right? So let's take NBA, because you mentioned it's a $1.7 billion.
1.1.
1.1? 1.1. Okay.
7 years.
Let's take NBA whatever. Let's assume it. You know what? Let's say the fucking NFL thing is $2 billion, right? Madden sells for $60, right?
Sure.
Right? Just clean.
70.
Well, I mean, to our American audience.
Sorry. Yes. Correct.
So let's say 60. Madden sold 790,000 copies last year within like 5 days of release. So let's round that up to 800,000, right? 800,000. All right. So that's $48 million in the first week plus, right? Minus shipping costs.
That's a big dev team. Lot of salaries to pay.
Let's cut it in half.
Lot of salaries to pay.
Right. Let's say
okay, but what about our higher ups?
Let's just
Pat, they deserve their bonuses.
Let's say they only made $25 million in the first week for a game they literally sell all year and sells all year, and the same people are going to be those repeat customers the following year. It almost feels like that license is worth it for the monopoly. And we know they actually don't pay the dev team all that much, because if they did, the games would actually improve. I don't think anyone is happy with the state of sports games. Everyone that I know that loves sports who will play an NHL game or a Madden constantly complains that the games are literally getting worse every year because nothing ever changes, but the whole other rest of the industry changes, and they become more loot boxy, they become more FIFA Ultimate Team, they become whatever. And the idea that you can't make money on a sports game, like, I'll be blunt. Do you know, the only argument that I could even believe for a second is that you can't make money on sports games unless you do all this loot box shit because licenses are so expensive, is because you have made sports games so terrible that only people that are already way into sports will play them. I'm not into football. I'm not into hockey. I'm not into basketball. I used to buy and play those games every year because they were fucking awesome. But no, I don't do that anymore because they're terrible.
Hey, listen, Diamond Dynasty, the pay-to-win mode in MLB The Show is it exists, and you might feel how you feel about it, but MLB The Show is the last full-service baseball title, period, There are no competitors. If you want your baseball, you're going to be buying MLB The Show, and that's all there is to it as far as a full-service title goes.
Yeah.
Can I suggest a compromise because I'm a man of compromise?
Oh, yes, fine.
All right.
I'm going to be pointing out, I'm getting real heated. It's not at you. It's at the character you are portraying.
I'm a man of compromise. I like to come to the table. I like to bring things to the table. I don't come to the table empty-handed. That's insulting, all
God,
right?
I hate that you are just emulating people you have met.
Here's what we do, all right?
It's upsetting.
You take your loot box and everything that comes in it, right? You don't want it in the game? How about this? Fuck you, it stays in the game, all right? But...
You got me. You really did get me there.
But we call it the CEO bonus box.
Fuck off.
And if you buy it, you know exactly where the money's going. How about that? You still get the goods. You still get all the stat. You still get everything that helps you win. You still get everything that makes you feel great. You still get all the rewards that you were going to get out of that loot box. But it's the CEO bonus box, and now you know exactly where the money's going.
Sports games have, like... This is going to be a broad statement, but sports games...
Meet me halfway, buddy.
Sports games have been straight up ruined by capitalism. I don't usually say that capitalism's a boogeyman, because capitalism is the increase of wealth, and it's been a pretty good system for us so far, I think. But, like, the actual issues with long-term greedy capitalism have ruined the sports game genre. They have destroyed it.
The box has a picture of the CEO on it, smiling, and every time you purchase one, you hear a little cha-ching, and then a little bit of shaking animation.
More honest. It would at least be more honest.
You get a good hearty like laugh and or a thanks, son, as you put the money in the bonus box. And then it shakes and then it pops open and all the rewards come out.
So who wrote this? What's this guy's name?
This is Polygon.com.
Okay, the writer, I don't know the writer's name.
Owen S. Good.
Okay, Owen. I'm going to give Owen the benefit of the doubt, morally, and assume that he was not actually paid to write this. Or that he is attempting to sidle up for a cushy job in EAPR in a few years once he leaves Polygon, which is fairly common. I'm just going to assume that he's a fucking dumbass. All right?
I was gonna say that, yeah, like you read through that and it doesn't sound like that someone who's got necessary an ulterior motive as much as it sounds like somebody
who's a dumbass
who's saying, like it or hate it, this is the state of sports games, and these legislations are killing them.
The overall thing of please think of the sports games. And I am very happy to see that whatever Owen's intention writing this article is, to provide a counterpoint against this kind of thing, to protect sports games, it is having a bombastic opposite effect in that the overwhelming majority of sentiment has read this and gone, oh, gross, fuck sports games.
The interesting actual takes I find are in the defense. There are certain appeals to, I guess, different like ideologies that come into play. So it talks about how the bills that we're discussing have carve-outs for things that we widely accept, like MMO subscription fees, premium cosmetics, provided they aren't awarded in a random loot box, I guess, is what he wrote, quote unquote. And it even protects things like charging for extra difficulty modes, right? So I don't know. I like, that's the one I was like, has that ever happened in a game that I could think of? I don't know. Not right, but it points those out and then it says like it has these protections, but the problem is that this loot box thing is just, it just seems so like prejudiced against the idea of these loot boxes. But really, if you look at the people making these the legislation, they're actually complaining about their kids using their credit cards. So it seems like the real issue is just that they don't want their kids using their credit cards.
Fair enough, but that doesn't just that don't allow that to distract from the fact that this is essentially a way that these companies have found to point unrestricted gambling at children. Like completely unregulated gambling. And you know what? Fuck it. I'll throw myself under the bus. Not even children. When I went on a fucking Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm fucking $500, $600 fucking loot box tirade, I felt high on crack. Not actual crack, but I felt... And I look back on that and go, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't gamble. Luckily, gambling is somewhat regulated. And I, as a baby Pat, would not have been given a chance to interact with loot box systems and think that they were fucking normal.
So, it brings up those things I mentioned. And, like, yeah, there's that. And then there's a sentence that drops in there where it says, I'd be interested to know how Rand Paul, for example, feels about this regulation of a free market. And I fucking roll my eyes out of my head. Because it's like, okay.
Oh, give me a
like,
break!
Now we're getting into...
The invisible hand will guide the market?
And now we're getting into just the idea of, like...
Fuck off!
Do you, like, I understand you don't want your loot boxes on the kids, but do you really want the government stepping in and controlling a free market? Is this actually the world you want to support? And I'm like...
Well, I have bad news for the writer of this article.
Are you seriously invoking...
Because as a Canadian, the answer is, yeah! I do! It works out okay up here. The free market does stupid shit sometimes. It helps to have people go, maybe don't do that. Maybe.
Well, stay in your goddamn commie Canada state.
Will do. Like, it feels like an appeal to religion. Like the invisible hand feels like the invisible hand of the market will provide all. Feels like a religious doctrine. And it's like, just don't let the kids gamble. That's
not even
it.
It's not even about the debate of whether you trust in the markets or you don't, right? If you are a libertarian and you believe that like taxation is theft,
all that stuff, yeah,
you know, and that like the markets can control themselves, we don't need to regulate them and so on, that's fine and dandy.
Totally.
There's a place and a time and a literal forum for that discussion to happen in a sophisticated manner. This is not that.
This is a video game article talking about my poor sports games might get damaged by
the gambling children
by the
being blocked from the the stretch is so absurd.
So I want to point out something that all of you are listening to a video game podcast. We talk about movies, we talk about anime, we talk about our weeks. This is a video game podcast. We talk about video games here, right? There's a lot of people out there that when you talk about video games, I want to grab them by the shoulder and be like, listen, bro, my profession, hobby, and general interests are pretty all along video games. I have kind of devoted my life to this hobby. Does that make me a huge dork? Absolutely. But I want to take you by the shoulder, hypothetical person, shake you a little, and go, it's fucking video games, bro. It doesn't matter. It's not important. If sports games die as a result of a legislation that keeps kids from becoming gambling addicts or wasting all their parents' money, oh fucking well. Oh no. Boo-hoo.
Bro, I put my fantasy season together already, and my boys are already putting money in the pool pot. You're shutting down my fun, bro. You're shutting down my fun.
You know what this made me laugh really hard about? And I'm sure our American audience is going to get a real kick out of this of how weird it is. We legalized the weed here in Canada very recently. And since the week of legalizing the weed, every time I go to the theater, there are anti-vaping ads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is the funniest thing in the world.
So are you just saying let it die trademark, bruh? Is that what you're saying? Just let it die? Because quite frankly, here's the funny part about that is, so you take that extreme stance on it, right? You're just like, who cares? You're stopping kids from gambling, right?
Sure.
I hear that. Again, I bring things to the table. This time for real.
Okay.
And I say, if you are concerned about the removal of loot boxes potentially hurting your game's top or bottom dollar
Sure.
so much that they can't afford to keep making them, then perhaps your game should join the likes of MMOs and become a subscription service so that those who care can keep paying for them
Sure.
to keep them afloat.
You know
Perhaps-
what? You know what? Fine. I think everyone would be cool with that.
Perhaps if you care that much, you can find another way to tap into the resource of the money you need to bilk from your crowd without putting children in the crossfire.
I have a new one.
Maybe.
And granted, we are now...
But that's just me.
We are proper in our 30s that we are talking about our hobby of choice and actually, no joke, for real, going think of the children. But let me take another stance on this. If you can't make a product for a correct amount of money and sell that product for a profit without inserting gambling into it, you don't deserve to be in business, because it means you're not good at business. Gambling is just free money. If you run a gambling service, it's just free money. People will just literally just give you money. So it's a good way to make money. An easy way to make money. But it also screws people up and screws their lives up, which is why it's regulated in almost everywhere that anyone listening to this lives.
I would even go as far as to say that that gambling is a regulated vice in the same way that we have tons of regulated vices.
Alcohol, smoking,
Whatever.
smoking,
Yep.
smoking.
Yep.
Right.
You know, and depending on where you live and or if you're a fucking Puritan or not, like sex work,
Yeah.
right? It's all up in the air, and you can classify it as you would. But the idea of like, okay, therefore there should be no casinos ever, is like, no, that's extreme.
I wouldn't even say there needs to be no loot boxes ever. But I do actually believe that if you do have loot boxes in your game, you should probably have some kind of check to make sure that, like, minors aren't able to do it. Also, my crusade against loot boxes now comes from a place of, like, I blew like $1,300 on loot boxes, only to realize that they fucked up the games that I like. They are a corrosive and damaging influence on things that used to be better without them. Sports games used to be really good, and they started getting shitty way before loot boxes happened. But it sure didn't help.
And what about the argument that the parental check should serve as the thing that keeps the kids away from the gambling, and keeping them away from your credit card should serve as the thing that stops them from being able to gamble?
That didn't work for the fucking porn companies.
I suppose it didn't.
It didn't work for the real gambling websites.
Hey. See those age gates?
Those are suggestions? No.
Have you ever hit an age gate and went, oh, damn it, I guess I'm too young. I'm going to close this.
What are you talking about?
The
Every
age-
time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I would never, ever.
Can't watch that trailer.
Can't look at it.
I am too young.
Luckily enough, despite looking how I do, I've actually always been 140 years old.
Good thing I was born in 1901.
Yes, 1905.
January 1st.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. Oh, and you know what? Let's roll it back even further. This is an intellectually dishonest argument that looks at the current culture of crunch and possible unionization and developer workplace abuse and goes, think of the poor developers who might go hungry because you banned Little Jimmy's loot box, which is disgusting.
It's
as a portrayal.
It's the byline that makes me laugh, because the article is called "Anti-Loot Box Bill Poses a Real Threat to Sports Video Games."
No, it doesn't, actually.
And the byline is, how else are those billion-dollar licenses paid? So,
With the profits of the game. And Possibly the lack of bonus.
Anyway, so you say that. I pull it back, and I just say, Owen, come on. Come on.
I don't know. I find it vile. I think it's taking advantage of real problems to pad the bottoms of rich dudes.
Could be. Or,
So, I'm going to give Owen the benefit of the doubt.
I always give the benefit of the doubt.
I don't think he was paid, and I don't think he's trying to set up a cushy job in PR.
I
think he's a fucking idiot. I think he's a fucking stupid moron.
Was there a thought that at some point the discussion of this topic, despite being a hot take and controversial, might inspire some people to click and read to see what's going on over here? Mayhaps. Sometimes a person says, I'm not writing clickbait, but I have an opinion, and it's an unpopular one, so I'm just going to put this out there and see what happens.
That's right. You've just described the thought process of a dumbass.
Is it intellectually dishonest?
This one is, yes. Absolutely. This is... okay.
Only Owen can answer
You know what? Either Owen's a dumbass and intellectually dishonest, or this motherfucker is the dumbest idiot to ever be a dumb idiot, and he's being intellectually honest. You get to pick one of these two, right? Because, in this article's world, the fact that, EA fires people to make profit margins, and the people at the top are making 100, 200, 300 times the average developer and have all their golden parachutes is not a factor that enters in. So either he doesn't actually even know that, which I find hard to believe, or he's being intellectually dishonest. There's only so dumb you can expect people to be.
I get that. And here, look, Wooly, not everything deserves the benefit of the doubt. If someone's advocating for harmful things, just call them a dumbass and move on.
That's fair.
I hear that, but I'm not. I'm the kind of I operate in a way where I like to assume that
you like to assume the best of people.
I like to assume the best of people, or at the very least that I believe the term is mistake theory.
Yeah.
Right. That there's a possibility that it's not that you're sinister. There's a possibility that it's not that, because there is sinister out there.
That's why
But in many opportunities, a lot of the time, it's actually that you are convinced that this makes sense or is the right thing.
See, here's the thing.
And there's a mistake we can identify.
That's why I want to be very careful and make sure that everybody knows exactly what I'm saying. I am not saying this Owen fellow is a bad person.
Right.
I'm saying he's a dumbass. Because if he is, in fact, actually of this belief, he's an idiot. And that idiocy might hurt people, but maybe that's not his fault. But it doesn't make him not an idiot.
There is a difference, though, in how you ultimately treat people once you're able to determine whether or not you're looking at stupidity or malice.
Yeah, malice. You got to do whatever you got to do in whatever the fucking situation is.
Now we got to get rid of the cancer. We got to operate and remove it.
Idiocy, you can either deal with a single, hey, that person's dumb, or ignorance. Just ignore them.
But yes, so
I feel bad for what I'm going to assume are people at Polygon who are not dumbasses, who share the page with people like this. Because, when I see a story from Polygon, I usually kind of chuckle because of shit like this. Though I'm sure there's always, at every one of these, trash rags, there's always people that do good work. But they it's like the Kickstarter thing. You all sink and swim together, right?
That article went through an editor, Wooly.
It did! Wow.
I'm missing this. I'm missing
nothing hits the front page without an editor taking a look at it and says that's good to go.
Yeah, but it's an opinion piece. So
right.
What's the editor going to do? Say your opinion's shit? Don't publish that? No.
Your editor. Your editor-in-chief's job is to say this article is shit and it reflects badly upon the publication. That is their number one job.
As opposed to this part of the article doesn't add up. You're missing facts here.
Because
there's an error over
here's
here.
the thing.
Source this.
So here's the thing. That is a poorly written article in which the editor-in-chief's job is absolutely to go, your article is actually poorly made.
Is a moral judgment usually as a part of the job description as well?
It depends
on the content?
It depends.
I would assume it wasn't.
I
could be. I definitely don't know.
It depends on the paper. It depends on the format. It depends on the nature of the publication. National Enquirer doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
New York Times probably gives a little bit of a fuck that they're not advocating certain things.
Yep.
Or they adhere to certain values, right? This Polygon is supposed to be a consumer-facing video game website. It is not like you're reading fucking Business Weekly or some shit. Right? This is supposed to be for you and me and everyone listening to here. So it should be advocating the values that those people likely share and be on their team, so to speak.
I guess I always thought of it as like if it's not a report on a news item, but it's an opinion piece.
Yeah,
I tend to
usually give it just carte blanche, like whatever.
No, not even the carte blanche, because there's definitely things like if someone comes out and says, "Yo, let's start kicking babies."
Yeah.
Everybody rally together. We're meeting up here at this time in this place.
Going through the quad streaking, and then we're gonna kick some babies.
Right? Then it's like, okay, your editor, yeah, right? No, I don't mean that.
Yeah, take that down. We're not publishing that.
But like the description I've always heard has always sounded like the editor, besides making, yes, one, there are like people go, oh, glorified spell checker. It's like, yeah, that's the joke. But no, they read through it. They like actually structurally make sure that what you're saying is backed up, makes sense, and references itself in the right ways. But then also they act as a sounding board for the ideas and bounce back something that might not be a clear thought.
Let me
but they might not necessarily go, my opinion is not your opinion, therefore
let me play pretend editor here.
Yeah.
Okay. Woolie, we're gonna assume you wrote this article. Woolie, who is this article for?
This is for people that are not sports fans looking at this legislation as a good thing, not understanding that it's going to hurt sports games for sports fans.
Okay, but what about sports fans? How do you think they're going to feel about it?
I think they continue to buy the games because they already understand that this is part of the transaction that keeps these games going. They might not have thought about or considered this on a deeper level, but the money that funds these loot boxes, or the money that goes into these loot boxes, is going back into these games that are very expensive.
Do you not worry that this looks like a blatant appeal to corporate apology, and that even though things are bad, we should just let them stay bad?
Well, it depends on whether you think they're bad or not, because if you happen to be of the opinion that...
All right, Owen, you're being a dumbass. Answer my questions or this is getting pulled. See, this is how it should have gone. Like, quit dancing around the bullshit.
Hey, tell you what, though, that's a really interesting experiment because it is very beneficial in a lot of arguments cases to literally argue
let's pretend.
Argue on behalf of the person whose opinion you don't understand in order to... put the framework down.
One, you're really good at this.
Yeah.
Two, I doubt he is. And I doubt his editor gave a shit. And especially, Polygon as a website has been mired in this crap since the day they showed up.
It has been. And
like day of.
And like in this entire discussion, I didn't even want to bring up the part where it's like, yeah, but we're on Polygon. Because it's like, because that's a whole other aspect to it.
Right, but if I'm the editor who's hitting this,
yeah,
it is of actual importance that I take how it makes the paper. I'm using the word paper, but how it looks, it makes it look. Because Polygon is, for anybody that doesn't know, Polygon was supposed to be, we're going to fix games journalism. It's going to be a new thing. And they got a grant or some shit. I think it was like 20 grand or 30 grand. And Microsoft did this big video series on them about Polygon's going to be the next wave of the future. And right away, questions about their bias started to show up because it appeared that a lot of people on staff really liked their Xboxes and possibly didn't like their PlayStations, in particular Arthur Gies, if you remember that guy. And the comment that came back out was, of course, just because Microsoft gave us all that money, do you really think that would affect how we cover things, or that they're paying us to do it? And the answer is, yeah. Most people are friendly with people that give them tens of thousands of dollars. That's a pretty favorable impression. And they've never gotten out from under that.
The factor of, like, once we start talking about the grander thing, which is the website itself, now the discussion is forced to be reframed because you're bringing in a history of, if you want to call it unpopular opinion article pieces, you can say that.
Yeah.
If you want to call it clickbait, you can say that. But multiple examples of what the fuck are you doing over the years.
I think the most frustrating thing about when that was going down is that there were a couple people that were interviewed and they acted fairly indignant. It was like, do you really think that $100,000 would change my artistic integrity? And I find that type of question offensive, because you're asking a question that the person is in their heart gonna say yes, but it's impolite to say yes because that's an accusation. So you're putting it out there in a way so that they can't answer it because that would be rude, right? But yeah, I do think if you got 100K and your whole website was funded by a company, you would be thankful to that company. Do I think that you got emails down from Microsoft going, hey, make sure to give the Halo? No, that's fucking ridiculous. Nothing works like that. But are you thankful? Of course, fucking duh. And you remember Arthur Gies with that SimCity shit? If you want to talk about EA specifically? Or Arthur Gies when the SimCity always online stuff. You remember that, I assume. Mm-hmm. And he was like, fuck off. None of you know what you're talking about. The game has to be online because blah, 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 blah. And then the guy just went, yeah, I turned it offline. I just flipped like 3 values in the code. Yep. And Arthur stopped arguing that point.
You ever hear about pharmaceutical companies having conferences for doctors?
I have.
You ever hear about the treatment the doctors get when they come out to just hang out and hear a little bit more about the medication they might not be up to date on?
Yeah.
And the like 5-course meals and glorious penthouse
and they're held at resorts,
rooftop rooftop resorts, and yeah, all of it. Ultimately, just to sort of keep you up to date and informed on how the product is going.
Listen.
And at no point ever are they ever going to recommend that you prescribe this medication more frequently or for anything that it wouldn't be right to prescribe it for.
It cannot be overstated.
It's an endorsement, but hey, quite frankly,
it cannot be overstated how most people think bribery works. And how influence actually works. A bribe is if I were to say, hey, Woolie, I want you to talk about how much you love this hamburger, and I gave you $50, and then I told you not to tell anyone. Right? That's a bribe. An endorsement would be, hey, Woolie, I'm going to give you $50, and you're going to tell people how much you love this burger, and then you're going to tell everyone that I gave you $50. Right? But influence is what you're describing. Nobody at a pharmaceutical company or EA or Sony or whoever ever called up somebody and said that Halo review better be 9 out of 10, right? They might call them up afterwards to complain, but that's usually people getting fucking pissed. Usually it's like, hey.
Or tweeting about it saying, why'd you fuck us?
Yeah, why'd you fuck us? That happens, and that's people getting possessive and mad. And you know what? I understand that even. But you know what it really is about? Microsoft holds Forza events. Do you know what these Forza events are? You're going to go to Germany or you're going to go to Monaco. All expenses paid. You're going to play the Forza for an hour or two. And then let's go race some race cars. Pretty good weekend, huh? And there's 2 parts of that. 1, yeah, I had a great time, and Forza's pretty great too. And 2 is, boy, I would like to go to the next Forza event. I hope they still like me next year. Right? It's like, that's how it works.
And how do you call someone's integrity into question at that point?
You ought, and you know, it's been a thing for the game business forever. Some people, doesn't affect them. Other people, it absolutely colors all of their expectations. And most people are somewhere in the middle, in which they're aware that it does color their expectations, and they may try and adjust for that, but it's hard.
It's not hard. It's an undetectable subtlety.
Yeah, and it's within you to do,
Because
whether or not you do it or not. And on top of that, the way games are played for game industry purposes warps people's perceptions of those games. When you are blowing through a game pre-release ahead of everyone else,
of course,
and you're doing it in like 2 days, and you're doing nothing but
with a PDF next to you telling you
how to dodge all that.
What the critical path choice is if you
Don't do this
to...
in Sekiro, or
Yeah.
right? It's going to inflate your opinion by its very nature. And then you see the consumer version of this. The consumer version of this is the honeymoon period, where a game comes out and everybody loves it, and then a month goes by and everyone realizes it was shit. You saw people going to bat for fucking Anthem, man, which I think is on this news docket again.
Yep.
You saw people going to bat for Anthem. You're just a hater. You just hate EA, and you're taking it out on Anthem. Look, you can fly. It's so cool.
Literally, in the article, the fuck EA children, and their complex arguments.
If you think this kind of behavior is limited to the people in the games business, you're crazy. Because everybody knew their pal who was so hyped for something, and then it came out and it was shit, but he was still so hyped that they tell you all the time how great it is.
But hey, man, Game of Thrones writing is hard. And then one day you wake up, bottle still in hand, crust on the mouth, and before you know it, you're defending loot boxes. And you look in the mirror, and you don't even have enough recognition of what you see to understand the action that you're in the middle, to understand what you're defending.
Yeah.
You don't even realize that you're defending loot boxes. You don't like that term doesn't quite.
Do you want loot boxes in the game? No, of course not. Then why are you defending it?
Like you might at some point have a distant voice in your memory of what video games were before loot boxes existed, right? You might be someone who, I don't know, maybe you're really young and like
loot boxes have always
they've always been there, and like the games without them are just like, oh, those relics of the past, like blaxploitation movies.
Yeah,
you know, you just but at what point, you know, at what point do you go, did I just write an article defending,
like, hoodwinking kids out of
for non-cosmetic,
you know what,
actual game influencing items?
So we've come all the way back to it, and there's part of this that we absolutely need to make clear. Woolie and I may have sounded, but think of the children, Ms. Reverend Lovejoy today, about protecting the kids from gambling, which might sound a little more panicky about protecting kids from video games. There is a reason for that, and the reason for that is because this article specifically calls out the developer he is interviewing says that the children, through loot boxes, control these games' futures and economies. And what are we going to do if the children stop buying loot boxes? So the article
that's the end of the article.
The end of the article, actually, go look at the end.
Yeah.
He says, they're the ones who control the industry, and I'm not talking about the bosses.
Yeah, there's a parent who had his kid that spent a bunch of money on virtual crap in a game.
Trying to be a good dad.
But it was a game that he himself made. He was a developer.
Yeah.
And he was trying to be a good parent and also trying to do a good job, knowing how much it depended on the bean counter's happiness and the bottom line that NBA 2K generated. And he was basically deciding between his kids spending the money on the gambling
and his job
and his game being successful. And then the quote was, given that they control the money and they spend a lot of it, you think we can change the medium? They didn't mean his bosses. They meant the kids. So that's the context.
The context is this defense of loot boxes is explicitly the right to have children gamble. Children gamble money that even the developers of the game itself are going, I don't know, this feels gross. And this is a defense of this as a status quo because my football.
It's almost as if the reason stands strong enough to simply say, because loot boxes suck and are gross and shouldn't be,
somehow isn't good enough anymore.
So introducing the child aspect somehow reinforces the point and doubles it down.
Yes, but actually it does the opposite. It's like, no, we need to let the children engage in the gross behavior so that I don't even know what this is going anymore.
So that
this thing is warped. Did you not read to the end of the article?
So that Tom Brady is there, and I see his face, and I see his logo, and I feel good about drafting him to my team. It's what I like.
And if that kid makes it so that that family can't eat because they gave him his credit card and the game tricked him into... You know what the best one was? Remember that Harry Potter game that would strangle Ronald Weasley until you fucking paid like $1.50?
I forget about that.
You forgot, huh? But do you remember?
I don't.
There was a mobile game that every scene would have timers on it, and there was one where Ronald was getting strangled to death, and it would say you have to wait 5 minutes or pay like $1.50.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like that is only manipulative to children. Like, it is so fucking dark, man.
Oh boy. Wow. That was a thing, huh? Well, anyway. Once again, we move on. I say,
I learned a new term during this debacle through people tweeting at me, which was, wow, you can really smell the boot polish on their breath on this one. Which I've never heard that sentence before, but I like it. Fucking sniveling corporate like, oh my god. EA's not your friend, guys. In fact, EA doesn't like you. In fact, they probably hate you.
But they want to buy the company you do like.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Just consume product. Don't ask questions. Then get excited for next product.
It's disturbing how applicable that always
every time
is.
Every single week I could bring
to
that
the
up.
Point that it actually oversimplifies complex arguments that could be made the opposite way.
Yeah. But it's always applicable.
Well, anyway.